Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to talk about annual plants that act like perennials. Now these are the overachievers in the garden and they continuously reseed themselves whether you ask them to or not. Now if you're new to the gardening world, annual plants are those that are one and done, they don't come back, and if you want to continue to grow them in your garden, you have to buy a new plant every year. Well, these plants I'm going to talk to you today about are those that reseed themselves so easily that they behave like perennials. So the first plant is cosmos. These are wonderful flowers. They come in different colors. They give that kind of cottage feel in your garden, and they do brighten up a room. Now, when the flowers are spent, the bud starts producing seeds. And when these seeds mature, they stick out like spikes and they fall to the ground, or they tend to be carried away by the wind, where wherever they land, they will germinate. And I've seen this a lot happen during the mid to end of summer, where I see these little baby seedlings popping up everywhere. Now, each bud produces anywhere from 50 to 100 seeds. If you consider the entire plant itself can produce over 100 flowers, that's a lot of seeds. So be mindful that when they do start to be popped, when they do pop everywhere, that you either should move them to a different spot, give them away to friends and neighbors, or maybe just get rid of them. Sorry to say, but this plant, when they grow to maturity, they grow anywhere from 5 to 6 feet tall, and they're kind of bushy and branchy. So they are going to take up a lot of space in the garden, especially if you're growing multitudes of them in one spot. Also, if you have plants that grow next to them, this plant is going to overshadow them and block the sun from the smaller plants. So other things in the area is going to be impacted by this plant being there and hogging up space and sun. Now they're great plants. The bees love them, butterfly loves them, but do keep in mind that when you grow them in a spot, they're gonna tend to take over. Now, if you want to try them and you just don't want to deal with the planning or even the maintenance, because trust me, when they get big, it's going to be hard to weed. Maybe find a spot in your garden that you don't want to deal with, a section of your garden that you just want to brighten up and want a plant that's just going to be self-sufficient. This would be the great one to start with. So just throw cosmos in that section and just watch the plant grow. Now, when it comes to lighting, this is not one that's tolerant of shade. It does need some sort of sun, whether it be full morning, afternoon. It needs ample sun throughout the day. When it comes to watering, it is very drought tolerant. I basically do tend to water it in the heat of the summer where it hasn't rained for a few weeks. When it comes to toxicity, it's not considered toxic to pets, but it could cause issues, stomach aches for some animals. So I advise you with everything, keep your plants away from it. Now the second plant is 4 o'clocks. This plant is called 4 o'clocks because these flowers do not open until the afternoon hours. I've gone into the garden early morning and seen them open at that point, but throughout the day, these flowers are basically closed. And these flowers come in different colors. There are little fancy looking ones. And again, they give you that kind of cottage feel in your garden. When it comes to seed productions, once the flower is spent, the bud produces one seed. That's not bad. It's not as crazy as a cosmo. However, this plant grows to be pretty large. It grows more like a bush and produces hundreds of flowers. So yeah, it is a big seed producer. The seeds tend to just drop to the ground. So you'll see seedlings basically around where the mother plant is. Again, you see them, you may want to consider spacing them out or giving them away, because it is going to take up more and more room as it gets to be a bigger plant. But overall, I consider this one being more like manageable in a way because it doesn't really grow vertically. It doesn't shade out other plants. You just have to be concerned of any plants that is smaller to this one because it does seem more compact in a way as a bush. So if you want to grow this, I'm gonna say it's okay to have it with other plants together. Just be mindful that it's going to start spreading every year, but I think it's a workable plant to be with other companions. When it comes to light, again, this is not one that is shade tolerant. You want it to have either in full morning or afternoon sun. When it comes to watering, I notice when it's thirsty, it gets a little sad and droopy. So yeah, might as well give it water at that point or in the heat of the summer. I don't have a schedule for this one either. When it comes to toxicity, this is a toxic plant. You don't want your pets next to it. Now, the next plant is Morning Glory. Now, and I know people may not like this because in some areas, morning glories will be considered an invasive plant. It is vine and it does need support, but it does come in different colors. It's adorable, I think. But yeah, this is one that once the flower is spent, the bud dries out into like a little yellow shell and then it produces the seeds and it will just drop to wherever it is and then it'll just keep on come back. Trust me, I grew this plant intentionally one year and it just keeps coming back now and it's like, oh Lord, but it's okay because I can manage it. I mean, I don't have a problem with it and actually helped my loofah because the bugs preferred to eat the morning glory than my loofah, and my loofah was perfect. So that's good for it. Now, again, this is a vine, so keep in mind with what you planted because it does tend to wrap around things. You don't want it to choke out something near it. So this is something that you want to grow on its own, or maybe other vines that it's okay wrapping around. Just keep that in mind. When it comes to sun, full sun is best. When it comes to watering, whenever. I didn't really see it. I didn't really water it a lot. I guess in the heat of summer is when I did that. But it was just one and done. It was just like, I didn't bother it. She was fine on her own. It's just very low maintenance. But again, if you're in an environment that doesn't have a killing frost, this thing might take over. So be careful. The next one I have is more marigolds. Now I know some people are going to say, oh, this is blah, blah. I see all the time, but it is a great plant to have in your garden. If it does help with some bug resistance, pest resistant, and it does do well on its own. It doesn't need to be babied or anything. Now, when the flower is spent, the bud produces seeds. And because this is a very bushy plant and it does have spreading abilities, it produces a lot of it. And so I just kind of tend to leave it alone. I let it do its thing because at least next year I don't have to plant this thing. It's just going to pop up everywhere. Now, if you've seen my video on procrastination, in that video, you'll probably spot marigolds who I just left alone because I'd rather not bother collecting and planting because it'll come up on its own and I can then, when they start germinating during the spring, I can move them wherever I want to or give them away to my neighbors who appreciate marigolds. Also grew a new variety last year, which was the African white marigold. This one's a little bit different than the ordinary marigold because it grows tall from 3 to 4 feet. And it was cute because it actually looked like a carnation. So it was nice to have something different in the garden. Now, when it comes to sun, full sun. But I've seen marigolds also grow like in the part shade. And let me tell you, marigolds produce so easily. They produce so many seeds. I think it's worth a chance to just throw them in a spot and see how they do, because there's so many seeds. You can save them for next year. So why not experiment in your garden regardless of the sun? That's what I think, because I put marigolds everywhere, and I kind of get surprised where it will come back up. And then when it comes to watering, it does look kind of sad in the heat after a while. So yeah, you could either like water it every week, I guess. I didn't have a schedule. I just noticed, in the heat of summer, and sometimes it look sad, I will water at that point. When it comes to toxicity, yeah, you don't want to give it. You won't have your pets eat this. So keep that in mind. Now the next one is zinnias. This is a cute plant. It's adorable. I like it. It comes in different colors. I've tried growing it everywhere, I guess, and it pops up. Now, where this is different from the other ones, because the flower doesn't really doesn't drop out or fade. Actually, the flower dries on the bud, and it's where the petal meets the bud, or is joined by the bud, is where the seeds are. So it's like a petal and the seeds at the end. And for me, it's kind of easily to lose sight of where the seed is because it's attached. And I've noticed in my garden, like I have wild yellow finches that come to my garden, and I have to beat them to the punch if I want to collect zinnia seeds, because those little finches love the seeds, and you'll see them on the zinnias plucking away, and you see petals flying everywhere. However, it's not needed, because I have a spot that I keep forgetting every year that I've planted zinnias at one point, and they come back every year like clockwork. And it's funny because I'm like, I had you there before, but that's wonderful. So zinnias are cute. They'll come back along, as they flower. They'll come back. And it's just funny. It's just funny how they do it. So when it comes to sun, I think this is one that, if you wonder if it can grow in a certain spot, go for it. Because I feel like I've had them in all very lighting conditions, and they surprise me. They do. When it comes to watering, they're drought tolerant. But I think with everything, like in the heat of summer, they do tend to look sad. So I give them water when I see them sad. And as toxicity, it's non-toxic to pets. But then I've seen where you don't want the pets to eat it. So take that with a grain of salt. Now, the next thing I have now is ground cherries. This is not a flower. It's actually related to tomatillos, and is like in the line of the tomato family. And it's actually something that I grew one year. I didn't like it. I didn't like the flavor, the profile. It wasn't really what I cared for. So I said, that's it. One time, I'm done. The next year, it came back on its own, because it's almost like a little tomato. And when it's done, it's like, again, it's related to tomatillos. So it's like in a little shell. So the shell turns like a brown, and that's when you know that the little fruit is done. And what happens is it will drop to the ground. That's why they call it ground cherries, because it drops to the ground. And then if you don't pick them up, they kind of just wither away. And then the seeds are left on the ground to then propagate, to germinate later. And that's what happened. The first year I didn't really clean out the bed, or I missed, because when they start producing, they produce like crazy. And the next year I found more of these plants, and I didn't grow them intentionally. I didn't care for them, but it was a good thing, because I actually liked them better the second year, and they even had a sweeter taste to me, that I ended up making ground cherry margaritas. It was the best thing. Who would know? So I'm happy that they stuck around. I'm happy that they self-seed the way they did, because I would never have tried them again. So yeah, so this is related to tomatoes. Full sun. I do water them on a schedule. My beds have irrigation, so whenever it runs, it gets watered. So, and of course, at like a tomato, you wanna water them. And as we know, tomatoes are not the greatest thing for pets, so you don't want them to eat this either. But yeah, it was great. The only thing I noticed is that flea beetles. The normal pests that you see on tomatoes are attracted to the ground cherries, but because the ground cherries produce so much and they're almost like bush-like, they don't care about the pests. They just produce like a mad person. It's like, so what, you bit me? I'm just going to keep growing. They're a hardy plant because they'll just take a beating and they'll just keep going. So keep that in mind. Now, the next one is basil. Now, basil are annuals, of course, and I tend to leave mine to go to seed. Now, the way that happens, of course, is that the flowers produce, and once the flower dies out, it leaves like little itty bitty bitty small seeds along the stem. And bees like this. The bees like the flowers of the basil too. So it produces a lot of seeds, and they just tend to drop onto the ground, which is great because the next year, the next season, I don't have to do anything. I just wait until I see them popping out. And if I don't like them where they're at, I'll pick them up, move them along. I've done this many times where, I just move them to a spot where I want them at, or, give them away to someone who wants to grow basil. But they're just easily seeded and I don't have to worry about it every year. When it comes to light, basil's a full sun. So you want them in full sun. I guess you can do in partial sun, but they're not going to grow as much as fast. When it comes to watering, again, they're part of my vegetable garden, so they do get watered on a consistent basis. They do get set in the heat of summer. They actually can, get crispy too. So you want to be able to water them. When it comes to pets, of course, basil, you don't. Though my cat likes to nibble on it, but it's not a snack. It's not a snack and not a meal. So the next one, Thai pepper. This is another thing that I spoke to in my procrastination video. This is the one that it is too hot. unless unless you're okay, taking your life in your own hands, sure, go for it. But this is a pepper that basically when it goes ripe, of course, it turns red. Then it dries out and becomes very hard, like a hard shell, and then it'll drop to the ground. And then that shell, when it starts eroding or wearing away, the seeds sit on the ground, and then they will germinate and make new plants. I had one plant, and now because I allow them to just do their thing, I have too many, and I don't do anything with them, which I'm gonna have to figure that out. But this is again a very hot plant. I tend to pickle it if I want to try and eat it, but good luck with that. But it's also a cute little ornamental plant also because it does become like a pretty red pepper. So that's another thing. If you want to be able to enjoy for the aesthetics, you can do that too. I don't see much bugs on it. Maybe flea beetles like them, but I don't think it has many pest pressure. So when it comes to sun, full sun, again, is part of my vegetable garden at this point until I decrease the numbers. So I do water it along with the rest of my vegetable garden. So I think that's it for now. If you think there's any other annual plants that act like perennials, please comment below. And with that, thank you for watching and welcome to my madness.